Welcome to the Standing in the Gaps historical deep dive. Let me take you back to a time when the world changed. Not because of war, politics, or invention, but because of a single massive explosion. One so powerful, it echoed across continents, dimmed the sun, and stole an entire summer. In April of 1815, on a remote Indonesian island called Sumbawa, a mountain named Tambora roared to life. At that time, it was one of the tallest peaks in all of Indonesia, standing over 4,300 meters tall. A sleeping giant for centuries, Mount Tambora had quietly sat at the edge of the Pacific Ring of Fire, its magma chamber slowly refilling over generations. But that spring, the mountain could hold no more. The first signs came on April 5th, rumbles beneath the earth, small eruptions, hints of something far more dangerous. Then, just 5 days later, on April 10th, it happened. The earth cracked, the sky went dark, and Mount Tambora exploded with a force that's still unmatched in recorded human history. The explosion was so loud, it was heard over 1,600 miles away in Sumatra. Ash and molten rock soared into the sky, ejected with such violence that the mountain itself lost more than a third of its height. A massive crater was left behind a caldera that still holds a lake today. Scientists estimate that between 37 and 45 cubic kilometers of material were blasted into the atmosphere. The scale is hard to imagine. This wasn't just a volcano erupting, it was the earth exhaling fury. And with that exhale came death. Villages at the base of the volcano were instantly wiped out by pyroclastic flows, clouds of gas and rock racing down the mountain faster than any human could run. 10,000 people died almost instantly. But that was only the beginning. It would look something like this. If you're finding this historical context interesting, make sure to like and subscribe to keep up with all our deep dives. Let us know what you think in the comments. And if you're enjoying this, and you want to support the Standing in the Gaps podcast and allow us to bring more of these deep dives to you, please check out our GoFundMe campaign. Every little bit helps us keep the lights on. Link is in the description. Thank you, and now back to the aftermath of Mount Tambora. The ash from Tambora didn't stop at Sumbawa. It spread, traveling through the sky, covering crops, poisoning water, suffocating sunlight. Crops failed, famine and disease followed. And in the months that came after, across Southeast Asia and beyond, tens of thousands more would die. Some estimates suggest the total death toll may have reached 100,000 or more, not just from fire and ash, but from hunger, sickness, and desperation. But here's where the story becomes even more astonishing. Because Tambora didn't just darken skies over Indonesia, it darkened the skies of the entire world. The eruption sent sulfur dioxide high into the stratosphere, where it mixed with water vapor to form a reflective veil of sulfuric acid aerosols. These aerosols blocked sunlight, cooled the earth, and triggered a global climate anomaly. The following year, 1816, would become known as the year without a summer. In New England, snow fell in June. Frost killed crops in August. Livestock froze in the fields. With food scarce and harvests failing, thousands of Americans packed up and headed west, hoping to find better land and better luck. That wave of migration helped shape the American frontier. Across the Atlantic, Europe was drowning in rain. Cold, wet conditions destroyed harvests across France, Ireland, and beyond. In some places, like Ireland, it rained for 8 weeks straight. Famine gripped communities. Disease followed close behind. In fact, this became the last major subsistence crisis in Western history. In Asia, the monsoon patterns were thrown into chaos. Crops failed from drought instead of flood, rice harvests were decimated, and the people who depended on them suffered terribly. But what's even more incredible is how this volcanic winter shaped our culture. In the summer of 1816, a young woman named Shelley was vacationing in Switzerland. She was trapped indoors with her companions Percy Shelley and Lord Byron because the weather was so cold, so wet, so miserable, it felt unnatural. They passed the time with storytelling. And one night, inspired by the eerie skies, the unnatural cold, and the mood of the world around her, Mary Shelley began writing a story that would become Frankenstein. Can you imagine that? A volcanic eruption on the other side of the world gave birth to one of the most enduring works of horror and science fiction. And it wasn't the only cultural ripple. Artists like J.M.W. Turner painted sunsets that burned unnaturally red. Some say because the ash in the atmosphere changed the way the light hit the sky. Economies collapsed, food prices skyrocketed, political unrest stirred in places where hungry people demanded answers, entire populations shifted, diseases spread, including one that would evolve into a global cholera pandemic. So here's a question for you. If a single volcanic eruption could cause this much change 200 years ago with a far smaller global population, no global economy, and no internet, what do you think would happen if an eruption like Tambora occurred today? How would our world handle it? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. This isn't just a fascinating historical tale. Tambora is a warning. It shows us how fragile our systems really are, how even one unexpected natural event can send shockwaves through every part of human life: agriculture, economics, health, migration, even art and literature. And while Tambora cooled the planet temporarily, today's climate story is moving in the opposite direction. We're heating the world, not cooling it. But the lesson remains. When the environment shifts, whether by nature or by our own hands, humanity must adapt. So, if you found this story intriguing, if you learned something new, or if it simply made you think, I'd love for you to help the Standing in the Gaps podcast by supporting our GoFundMe. Even a small amount helps us keep the lights on. Thank you, and don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who enjoys history, science, or unexpected stories that connect the dots across time and place. And don't forget to comment what part of this story shocked you the most. Was it the scale of the eruption, the global effects, or the idea that Frankenstein was born from the ash of a volcano? Despite the doom and gloom I've shared, there is still hope on the horizon. We at Standing in the Gaps podcast firmly believe that our best days are yet to come. Our guiding slogan, "The best is yet to come," serves as a beacon, reminding us that even though the dark times have cast long shadows over our past, a radiant future awaits us. We draw strength from our resilience and faith in Jesus, knowing that every challenge overcome is a step towards brighter days. It is through this faith that we find unwavering hope, trusting that He has a plan for each of us that leads to prosperity in life. Let us hold on to this optimism, for it is the light that guides us through any lingering darkness. Together, with faith as our guide, all of us can forge a path toward a future filled with promise and endless possibilities. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time with another deep dive into the moments that shaped our world.